Welcome to Build. I'm Laura Haywood, and today I'm joined by one of the most talented people in show business. Leslie Odom Jr. burst onto the scene as Aaron Burr in Hamilton, an American musical, winning a Tony and a Grammy Award for the role, which he performed over 400 times. He's since recorded 2 solo albums, starred in several feature films, including Murder on the Orient Express, performed America the Beautiful at this year's Super Bowl, and welcomed his first child. Today, he adds author to his resume with the release of Failing Up, How to Take Risks, Aim Higher, and Never Stop Learning. Please join me in welcoming Leslie Odom Jr. I feel like I've been waiting years to have you on this stage, and I'm thrilled that you're here.
Me too. Thrilled to be here.
The book came out this morning, today. You are officially a published author. Does it feel different than it felt yesterday?
Yes.
How so?
Because, you know, not to like deal in tired, you know, cliche stuff, but it is a little bit like the birth thing. You know, it is a little bit like, you know, your baby out there walking and talking and having a life outside of you. It started as, you know, an idea from my publisher 2 years ago. So it does feel different the day that it's out. This little, you know, idea that someone else had really 2 years ago. She said, they came to me and they said, well, what about writing a book like a commencement address? Because I thought it was absurd that I would write a book at all. But they said, you know, what if you wrote it like a commencement address? And that sent me on my way. And 2 years later, here we are.
What was the course of action over those 2 years? Did you outline it? Did you sit down and just write free form? Did you speak it into a tape recorder?
I did. I outlined it in London. I had lots of free time in London on that movie, on Murder on the Orient Express. And so I did the first outline there, and you know, kind of came to me one night, you know, a year and a half ago or something, and I sent it to Nicolette. I sent it to my manager. I was like, "What do you think of this?" And they dug it, and then I put it down for, you know, months. Then we had Lucy, and we got a little busy with that, and you know, with her, and so it was a while. But yeah, then they prodded again. It's about a year later. The book is coming out about a year after they wanted it to come out, but. They started prodding a little bit, and they said, you know, what if we had regular deadlines for you? So having that accountability, having those deadlines was a first for me, but it got me to the finish line. I wouldn't have been able to do it without it.
Talk to me about the word failure. It's the title of your book, and you are certainly addressing it in the text as a good thing, not a bad thing. That's contrary to the way a lot of people, I think, traditionally consider the word failure, and I'd love to hear you define it in terms of what it means to you now.
Well, I wasn't just afraid of it. I wouldn't allow it. You know, I wouldn't allow it, and there was like it was blockage. You know, what I mean is, you know, it started for me really in school, really in college, because if I'm being honest, I wasn't the best student in middle school, high school, and stuff. But in college, you know, having some autonomy in my education, choosing what I wanted to study and where I wanted to study. You know, I went to Carnegie Mellon University, which is not a cheap school to go to, and so it was very important to me that my transcripts reflected the seriousness, you know, with which I took my education. So, failure was not allowed. You know, I didn't allow it, which was fine, right? I graduated with honors, which is okay, you know, good for you. But what I realized as an artist, you know, what I realized 5-6 years after graduation was all that meant was that I went through 4 years of college without having ever taken a risk. You know, I went through 4 years of college without really testing what my boundaries were, you know. And what I can say is, you know, that exciting, fresh, dynamic work that people saw in Hamilton from the entire company, you know, you really only get that kind of thing from risk.
Right.
You know, you really only get that kind of thing from daring to fail and the failure has to be dealt with because there's no guarantee that it's going to turn out like you think it's going to turn out.
One of my favorite stories in the book is about Billy Porter, who directed you in a production where he asked you to really sort of stop being so measured in your performance. I'd love to have you share that story and how resistant you were to taking that risk and what ended up happening when you did.
Yeah, we were out of town with this show that Billy had written and was directing, and there was a moment, and he first had written the part for himself. So we all know what Billy can do. I mean, Billy's he was a major influence on me and a hero of mine. And so deep in Act 2, there's this moment where you're supposed to, tear the roof off the place, and I was not really comfortable with that. Especially doing it in front of Billy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I chose to make sort of the opposite decision, the opposite choice. And it wasn't working for him, and he was asking me to try something different. He was asking me to risk, to get in the front of the stage and do something a little scary. And I fought him on it, not so much in words, but I didn't do what he was asking me to do. And I talk about fuel in the book, for better or worse, anger has always been a tremendous octane for me. It's been, if you make me mad, sometimes that can, that's great for me right before I go on stage. It's like, but
don't tell people that.
I know. It's, for better or worse, as I get older, there's other things I could use too. But, sometimes angers are great. It's like, I'll show you, right? So, sort of, student, I'll show the teacher, I'll show Billy that he's wrong. I'm going to do what he wants. He made me so angry, over the weeks of asking. I'm going to do what he wants to show him how ridiculous it is. I'm going to fail on, center stage on Zero to show Billy that he's wrong.
That he never should have asked you to.
He never should ask me to, do that to begin with. and he wasn't wrong. I saw, it just like opened me up, and it shook me, and it was scary, and it was kind of like, like when you drive the car so fast it starts to shake a little bit, but you get to see what the thing can do. He he got me to tap on that ceiling and realize it was higher than I thought it was, and so it changed my life. It's the 10 on the emotional scale. If there's a 1 to 10, I was never comfortable at 10. Billy showed me how to get to 10, and now I run to 10. We start Hamilton on 10. You know what I mean? I love it now.
You also have an incredible story about a message you got from a mentor who talked to you about trying. When you were under the impression you'd been trying your whole life, and he redefined that for you. Can you explain?
Yeah. Any artist in here? Anybody living Yeah. So what he, we live a freelance lifestyle. We're freelance business people. Which means, Hamilton's the longest job I've ever had in my life. I've never had a job for a year in my life. At my jobs, they begin and they end. They're stints. And so I got very, the way it worked through my 20s, and it was, my agents send me an audition. They send me an audition, and I show up and I do my best, and sometimes I get it. So I met with Stu. I'm about to turn 30. Stuart K. Robinson is his name. I met with Stuart, and I was looking to transition into some other career. I was tired of the up and down. I wanted to become an adult, if you can imagine.
He was an actor who became a teacher, right?
That's right.
So you were thinking maybe you'd take the same path?
Maybe a teacher, maybe casting, but I just wanted to talk to him, like a career counselor. Look at my skills and help me think of this other thing, something else that I can do. And he looked at me and he said, we can talk about that. We can talk about ways you could transition. But before you quit, I'd love to see you try. I looked at him like he was out of his mind. At this point, I'd worked. I'd been on Broadway already. I'd done some stuff, and like I said, I booked a fair amount. Try. What do you mean? And he said, well, I think from what I hear, you saying to me, you were sitting at home and you were waiting for the phone to ring today, and the phone didn't ring. So what did you do in the absence of the ringing phone? Who did you call? Did you write anything? Did you read anything? Did you practice? Did you take a lesson? Did you take a class? he pointed out all of these things that I could be doing to fill my days when the phone wasn't ringing, when the emails are not coming in, and it was half of my business that I was ignoring. I feel like, people know that more than ever, sort of today, but you still need to be reminded of it. But yeah, you don't get any points for sitting at home waiting for somebody to create an opportunity for you.
No, you just get you get the comfort of not risking the failure. You also talk a lot about joy and the joy of the beginner. And when you did end up going and taking that class right after you got that advice from Stuart Robinson, you talked about how you watched yourself back on film and you were this like jaded, experienced guy. And all the people who had no experience at all came in with sparkles in their eyes and like, you recommend finding your inner beginner. And I think a lot of people watching this probably are beginners and don't see that as a good thing. They see that as a bad thing. Can you explain a little bit more about why embracing the beginner is good even for the most experienced professional?
Well, there's this thing about beginner's luck, when you analyze that really, what is that? I think it's that, beginners are a magnet because there's no jadedness, there's very little fear, it's just joy and love and light in the eyes, like you said. And so that's what I saw when I watched I ended up enrolling in Stuart's beginning acting class, and I'm 30 years old by that. I'd already done CSI Miami and this pilot and that pilot.
And Rent on Broadway.
But I was in Stuart's beginning acting class, and I was looking around the room at like these people who just moved to LA and they're very, very excited to be in a commercial acting class, and I'm like, oh God, that's a beginner, And we watched Stuart do this exercise, and we watched ourselves with the sound off. I didn't know what the exercise even was gonna be, so we watched ourselves back with the sound off, and the beginners were irresistible. They were irresistible. They were so full of light and joy, and and the experienced guy, I looked held and measured and reserved and afraid. Rejection had put a film around me. There was like a corrosion of I wanted to be, let me know it's okay, and then I'll share. I'll open myself up, to you. But after seeing myself in that way and seeing the beginner, how magnetic they were, I changed my motto. My motto was, I need to come rushing forward into every room. If you don't want to work with me, that's okay. I will find another room, but I'm not going to wait for you to give me the permission to let you know. And that's what I did with Hamilton the whole time. All those workshops and readings, I wanted them to know, I love this. You may find somebody else to play Burr one day, and that's your right. I can't stop you from doing that. But I don't want you to ever wonder how I feel about it.
So do you feel like you were channeling your former self when you were singing the song Wait For It?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I had to do it again. Because Hamilton, there was I did, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years of development with that show, and there was never any guarantee that I was going to get I have the original email that I got from Lynn in the book, which asked me to be a part of one reading. That original email doesn't say you're going to be in the Broadway production and win a Tony Award for the, it's you get to be a part of one reading.
Is that the email that was, the subject line was October?
Yes, yes. And so
gotta love Lynn for a pun whenever possible.
So it
should be an annual holiday as far as I'm concerned.
It was more like a 2-year protracted audition. Every single time I got another email that was like, and now we're doing another reading, we're doing another workshop. You hang on for dear life. You do your very best, and then at the end of that, you don't make your feelings a secret. Again, I'm coming rushing forward. You may not be into it, and that is okay. But I'm not going to let fear of failure, fear of your rejection, shut me down or make me play small or, damn that.
Joy is such a powerful force. It's a currency, and you and I have definitely bonded about that over the years. I'm curious how being a father has affected your ability to see joy and being new at something in the world around you, and how you've taken Lucy, your daughter, as an example of how to be in the world.
I think that when I look at friends of mine who are great parents, what I deem a great parent, you know, everybody, it's different for everybody, but my favorite parents, what they've done with their children is they've managed to preserve the light in their eye. You know, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, you know, those of us that are old enough, you know, that light gets dim. People try to snuff it out over time, but for as long as you can, to preserve that light in your kid's eye, to preserve their childhood and the joy and all that stuff, that's our job. I feel like that's our job, to keep that from getting snuffed out, you know, just to, for as long as we can. And so, she's a little light, our Lucy, you know, like all children are, you know, we're just trying to keep her flame lit.
I heard you tell a story that really touched me significantly recently about how you're raising your daughter, and I want you to share it on every stage possible about how she, at 1 year old, is already establishing boundaries and how you're supporting her in that. Can you share that? Because I think it's important for anyone who has children in their lives, especially little girls. You know the story I'm talking about, right?
I do. I talk about Kenny Leon, who did a great job moderating the event last night, much like you're doing. Right? But Kenny asked me about the section of the book where I talk about yes and no, owning your yes and your no. For a long time in this business, you know, starting out, that is all you own. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, you don't have any power over a network that's offering you some job or some producer. You don't have any control over what they're going to offer you or when they say, and that's our final offer. All you own is your yes and your no. You know, you can say, you know, when it rubs you the wrong way, when it, you know, you feel like you're going to compromise too much of yourself, you can say no. You can say no and mean that and walk away. Your willingness to walk away is all you have. And so Lucy is learning, she's just learning no. She will shake her head, you know, if we ask her, Lucy, can I have a hug? Lucy, can I have a kiss? And so sometimes she'll say that. In the mornings, usually you can get a little bit of love. But like mid-afternoon, she's like, I'm busy. I'm not trying to hug you right now. And people in the family were hugging her anyway. We're kissing and hugging her anyway because she's small and you can just grab her and, oh, come here.
Well, she's so lovable.
She's so sweet and you know, and it's cute. The no is sort of cute. And I said, you know, I really think we should stop doing that. If she says no, you know, she needs to know that people are not going to, if you say no, then people shouldn't hug you and should not kiss you if you say no. And so I told them, if you don't want to hear the answer, then don't ask. You know, you just grab her and hug her, you know, grab her and kiss her. At 1 year old, like we should have the right to do that as her parents. But if she says no, we have to honor her no. So there's this cute video of Nicolette that she sent me one time when I was on the road. And Lucy's climbing all over her. And Nicolette says, you know, Lucy, can I have a hug? Lucy says no. And Nicolette just goes, all right. I respect that.
I feel like that it's a funny story, it's a cute story, but it's also a really important one for parents of little girls. And, you know, so I felt this surge of pride for you when I can already tell you're going to be a great role model for your daughter. And I feel like through this book, you're a great role model for anybody who's striving to become, whether it's to become an artist or whether it's to become just a better person in the world. The idea that being bad at something and being new at something aren't the same thing, even when they look the same, is kind of my favorite concept in the world. And when this book came out, I was like, I don't think there's ever been a book that was more perfect for all of the things that I love at the same time. And there's a picture on my Instagram of the day I got the advanced copy of the book, and my mouth is like, because I was so excited. And I just know that everyone who picks this book up, which is available today everywhere, is going to feel the same way. I just couldn't recommend it more highly, and I'm thrilled that you're here. We're going to take a couple of questions from the audience if you're okay with that.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gina from Nashville. Love the book. It made me want to be better. It just better. But my questions are, first of all, I have two, if I may. How did you get the nickname Speedo when you were little? And where is this magical place that has the best pancakes in all of New York?
Two very good questions that really prove you read the book. Nicely done.
Speedo came from my grandfather, who's no longer with us. He said, the story goes, I would be, whenever they would see that I was sluggish as a little kid, they would feed me, and once that blood sugar would, be right again, I would just start running around the house, and so he called me Speedo. He was the only one that called me that, and it's so weird about nicknames because, I guess if somebody else called me that on the street, I would think it was strange, and like if it didn't have his particular Southern twang, like there was a way that he said it that I didn't hear a difference between that and Leslie. It was like it was my name as much as it was Leslie. And then the place is Giorgio's Country Grill. That's where I was.
We're all going to be there tomorrow morning.
53rd and 9th, maybe, Giorgio's Country Grill. But Nicolette and I went there all the time. And Tony morning, that's where we went. Instead of like being glued to a TV and like watching nominations, we shut our phones off and we went and had some pancakes. We said we'll deal with it later.
Just to add on, that's another story you tell in the book, and you talk about how you looked at each other and you said, if this is all we ever have, this is enough. This is wonderful. We love our life together. And I think that everybody who is on the precipice of something like the Tonys should do that. Take stock of what they already have.
That's right. I mean, that was a big morning, and that's a heady trip, So yeah, we really wanted to stay healthy and well through that.
Where do you keep your Tony and your Grammy, by the way?
I don't have my Grammy yet.
Really?
I don't. Everybody else in the cast got it. I don't have mine yet. It got lost in the mail or something. I know. Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on getting the Grammy. The Tony is just, it's on a little. We're in an apartment right now while our house gets renovated. So it's sitting on, on a buffet kind of thing.
Does the baby play with it?
Not yet. She couldn't care less.
Someday she'll be like, she and her Barbies, and the Tony will be. Who else has a question?
Hey, I am really proud of you and all the different avenues you have taken as a person and an artist. It's really inspiring for me coming up. And I just wanted to know personally for you as a songwriter, what are some ways that you go about writing and coming up with these songs, and where do you usually look for inspiration or often find it?
I mean, you keep the bar high, right? I mean, I fall short all the time. We all do. But for writing this book, for songwriting, for really everything that I do, I don't want to create throwaway art. I don't want to create throwaway. We have enough trash, all around us. We're drowning in trash, right? So I look to things that have stood the test of time, and again, I fall short all the time. But I'm looking at songs. Songs that are written today. I mean, Lynn's written a few, but
to put it mildly.
Yeah, Janine Tesori's written a few, You're looking at songs that I look for inspiration in things that have stood the test of time, classic things that have been around for a really long time, well-made things.
You just mentioned 2 theater songwriters. Are you writing for theater?
I'm not at the moment, no. I did go.
Failing up the musical.
That'd be good, maybe. I did just go see. I saw In the Heights in Lynn's first show. I saw In the Heights at the Kennedy Center, which was so nice to revisit that first work from him, and to see how he's grown as a writer. I went to a workshop yesterday that Nicolette did, written by the Pigpen Theater Company. Do you guys know them? They're so fantastic. But seeing a first draft of something that, it's a first draft. So it's like, it's not really ready to be shown or anything, but watching brilliant and brave artists reach the end of something, that I understood. There's something about, seeing In the Heights now, or seeing that the first act of this new musical by Pigpen and Rick Ellis, having made it to the end of this book, I'm like, making it to the end of something, you know, especially as a writer, just getting to the end. You can edit all day. You can edit for as long, you know, with Hamilton, we didn't put our pencils down until they made us put our pencils down, you know. Stop fine tuning, you know, once they make you. But, you know, there is just something about putting one foot in front of the other and just making it to the end. You know, you can't
might
get
call
anywhere.
it a graduation of sorts.
That's right.
Which is the through line in the book.
Yeah, you can't get anywhere until you finish.
How does your desire, you said you don't want to make trash, how does your desire to not make any trash sync up with the idea that you always have to take risks? Like, you can't set out to only write hit songs.
Yeah. Oh, all I meant by that was there's a certain quality that I'm attracted to, you know? What I meant was I'm not trying to make disposable art, you know? Something that's like here today and gone tomorrow. Again, I could fall victim to it like anybody else, but, you know, when we were recording that first album, we were recording the Christmas album. I'm like, I want this Christmas album. I don't want to create something that just sounds good today or next year. I want to create a Christmas album that I can hear 25 years from now, and then I don't know if I did it. You know what I'm saying? But that's what we're trying to do.
It's a classic in my house.
But that's what we're trying to do. The first album was the same way. I'm trying to make something that is going to last, something that's not disposable. I think that's what I meant by trash.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying.
Yes.
We have another question.
Hi, let me introduce myself. My name is Ivanette, and I'm from Puerto Rico. And I have a best friend. He's an English teacher back home, and his name is Mr. Ed, and his students, they're watching, so if you could say hi.
Mr. Ed and students, hi.
If they're not watching right now, they'll probably watch later. I just wanted to let you know that he is making an effort to teach with your work and whatever you've put out, and with Hamilton, and he's teaching the students after the hurricane. He's teaching them about music and literature and how to be in this world, and, you know, to strive for greater things and like of English overall. But he's doing this as a teacher, and he loves you. Like, he's a Burr fan all the way. And you know, knowing this leads to my question, which is, how do you feel knowing that your work is so influential in a time where race and culture are so important to the world, to education, and to the industry?
Well, it feels like a responsibility. You know, we have a responsibility not to make trash. You know, we have a responsibility in this moment. But it also feels like on some very real level, like we've been preparing for it for our whole lives. Like you're seeing this moment that people of color are having. I mean, the industry's so different now than when I came out of school. You know, when I came out of school, you know, Issa Rae, Donald Glover, Shonda Rhimes, Ava DuVernay. I mean, these people were not on the scene in the way they are now. Ryan Coogler. You know, I mean, there's so many powerful, influential, creative voices in a way that, you know, has never existed that I've seen all at once. So it feels like a responsibility, but it feels like these people and me, you know, on some level, Lynn, you know, David's movie, Blind Spotting. Wait till you see it. It's unbelievable. You know, we've been preparing our whole lives. Blind Spotting, they've been writing that movie for 10 years. Nobody cared 3 years ago. They couldn't have gotten that movie made. Now people care, and you see, oh, you know, here's these brave, bold new voices that, you know, we were not checking for 5 minutes ago.
We call them new voices because they're just finally getting their platforms. I think we still have time for a couple more.
Hi. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Georgette.
How are you?
I'm good.
My question is, what was your favorite chapter to write and why?
The Hamilton chapters were probably my favorite to write. And they came out the easiest because it was a really wonderful thing to get the opportunity to have some distance and some perspective to process what had happened. My life changed. My life completely changed. I went into that show. It's like a a fun house or something. I went into that show really in workshop phase and development phase, but into the public theater, which is right around the corner, and sort of and then like through presto changeo, I came out of the stage door at the Richard Rodgers Theater 2 years later and was in a different, it was just life had changed. People that would not have taken my call would take my call or were calling me or, that kind of thing. So it was a really wonderful thing. I was grateful for the opportunity that I got to process that and put it down on paper in a way so that I can also move on even farther, if that makes sense, that you really get to turn a page. It's like, I feel like I got it out. I say everything that I intended to say about that experience in this book.
It reminds me of, I remember running into you on the street. You were walking to work the day that the Hamilton original cast recording came out. And I was wearing my hot pink headphones walking down 9th Avenue. And I was like, I'm listening to you right now. And then like 2 weeks after that, after the world got that album, if you had been on the street on 9th Avenue, you would have been mobbed. Like, suddenly you were more than just a human being going to work. You were like part of this phenomenon. And I enjoyed reading about that experience in the book and like, what a whirlwind. Yeah. Let's take one more question.
Hey, Leslie.
Hey, Brian.
I had a question for you. After Hamilton, how has your life and career changed since ending the show?
There's more opportunities. When people would ask, what do you want to do? What do you do post-Hamilton? What do you do after that? I said, well, you do all the stuff that nobody would let you do before Hamilton. Film is so exciting and new. I couldn't get a film before Hamilton, so...
You're a freaking spokesperson now.
I was auditioning for commercials, to be, anywhere in the mix. And so, to partner with a brand like Nationwide or Fossil, some of the other stuff I've done has been cool. So, everything's different. There's a different, a new world opened up. Nobody was asking me to write a book before Hamilton, believe me. No one would have cared. Hopefully some people will care now, hopefully.
People care. Do you know that before we went on stage right now, this book was already in the top 300 of all the books on Amazon? Yep, and it's going up. So, I have to acknowledge the fact that out of this audience, you knew several people by name.
Yes.
And I think that's such a testament to how much your heart truly is in what you do. You connect with people, and you don't just fake it. You know people. You let them in, and that's beautiful, Leslie.
Well, I want to say this. There are people in this room and people watching too who have been just so supportive. We would be. I'll say this. Please give me a second to say it. I remember when Leap of Faith opened. We ran for 23 shows.
Mm-hmm. I saw
That's
two
where
of them.
We met.
I saw 2 of them.
23 whole shows we did. And I was so excited to have my first Broadway principal contract because I said, I'm finally going to get to treat people the way that I know that they should be treated. I've watched people treat people at the stage door like garbage. I've watched people ignore people and be rude, and I hated it. And I couldn't wait for the chance to treat people the way I thought they should be treated.
It's easy to say that when you're on your first contract. It's a different thing entirely, I think, once you've gone through a phenomenon like Hamilton and you're still doing it. So credit where credit's due. So you have taken on as one of your signature songs, Dear Theodosia. It is a song that, after listening to it probably conservatively 2,500 times, still brings a tear to my eye every single time. I listened to it again this morning, and the line that jumped out at me today, maybe more than it ever has, is, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll make a million mistakes. This book is all about the importance of making those million mistakes and how, whether you're a parent, an artist, or any human on the planet, making those million mistakes is the key to becoming who you're meant to be. And it's such a perfect, beautiful, poetic, coincidence of this lyric that I will always associate with you and this book that is going to change lives. And it's hard not to get emotional just thinking about the world of difference that you have made and that you will continue to make. Keep doing it, Leslie, will you?
You got it.
We'll see you soon. Come back soon. Thank you so much.